This is our house walkthrough. All work has stopped on it, so this is basically our final walkthrough unless I really forget something.
It's Thursday, May 20th, by the way.
Thursday, May 20th, about 12:30, 1:45. As you can see, we have damaged plaster, no primer. This is the back bedroom where the three girls sleep. This is the building materials left behind and where they broke some trim, so they had to replace some trim. Going around here, we have damage to the paneling from where they put in a new board. Up here, the trim does not meet the ceiling at all. They managed to break more trim. This does not meet up at all with their new trim. There's egregious painting issues. The paneling is pulling away from the wall. Paint and outlets. Once again, no primer. No primer is huge upstairs. The trim has been scorched in the fire and was reused, which is very bad. It smells still smoky up here because the plaster up here was never deodorized, nor was it ever sealed. And then primer wasn't used with the paint on top of all of that, so it's probably a bit of a health issue. Besides having almost every outlet in our house full of paint. We have more sloppy paintwork. There were burn marks on this wall that they covered up, and those will be shown in pictures that will be sent. They tried to save some of the trim boards, as you can see, but they were not really properly installed either, and they were damaged by trying to save them. The plaster work was never done properly. As you can see from the lumpiness here too, this was a repair job that Rebuildex did. No primer, walls as spotty as anything. We have damaged fins along all of the heat. Holes from where the old heater was have never been filled in, and we were told they're not touching the floors up here. The floors were not in great shape because the kids grew up in the rooms upstairs, but they did not look like this. Most of the finish has been worn off in big places, and they have been gouged. You can see that the workmen left nails behind, and apparently they stepped all over them, digging up the floors. There's marks from, I don't know what they were doing, I guess taking off the trim, and they marked up the wall. So they removed trim, but painted anyways. We have a big hole here. And over here you can see where holes were not filled in. The paint is actually very dirty because the walls were not washed. Painted outlets, more painted outlets. They drilled holes, but we don't know what for. And these were things brought up in person with our building manager, Corey Wade,
project
in
manager.
person. And I was just poo-pooed about it and said everything will be fine. The smoke alarm and ceiling light for this room, we're afraid that the door isn't going to pass it, and you have to pick up the door when you move it now because it gets caught. It no longer opens fully, and you can see the fresh dig on the floor from that. The plaster doesn't meet up. Once again, paint in the outlet. Now, I know the door looks terrible. We want this door to remain terrible because the twins have autism and this door is basically their work of art. So ignore the door. We're okay with the door looking horrible. Going out into the hallway, heading towards the front bedroom, as you can see, there was no primer used here. There was no deodorizing of the upstairs either. So once again, it's getting very stinky as the temperature rises outside. We're going to go into my son's room. You can see the sloppy paint job here with no primer used. This room hasn't been deodorized either, and the floor's finish has been pretty destroyed. There's no primer in this room. These walls were yellow. They were a golden yellow, and you can see it coming right through the robin's egg blue. You can also see in the outlets all of the paint. There were no repairs done to plaster. And this house was closed up over the winter and very, very damp. So a lot of this damage is new. It wasn't really sealed up well. There's hardware that wasn't removed, just kind of painted around or even painted on in places. We pointed out a spot of mold and it went untreated and now it's starting to bleed through.
On the fresh paint?
Yes. Sloppy paint jobs. There's a big crack in the trim. More cracked plaster. They painted over some sort of hardware. The fins in the heater are either bent or missing. We have more sloppy paint. There's another crack in the plaster and another hole under the heat register from where they put them in.
Where?
Right there.
Oh.
We actually are getting a lot of bugs in the house, which are probably due to all of the holes. This is damaged trim. And it's hard to see in the back of the closet because of the light in here, but there is a spot in the very back corner where there was mildew that we informed the project manager about, and it was not treated. I don't know if you actually can see the floors well, but they are really bad because they dumped a whole bunch of building materials in here at one point. And once again, there are screws and nails that the workmen were probably stepping on instead of cleaning up after themselves. This whole site is extremely dirty. They have never cleaned.
Yeah, if you look at my shoes, you can see plaster all over them.
Even after the fire, they just kind of broom swept everything, so there's just dirt. There's no primer in the paint, even though we were directly told by Corey Wade that he did use primer, but it's very apparent that no primer was used. There's a hole here, painted over screws. The scratch here showed up the same day that the new handrail was installed, so we're assuming that he hit the wall with it. Or when I say he, I mean whoever was working on it.
Probably.
Sloppy paint. Our ceiling lights are all painted. Our smoke alarm boxes are painted. This one also has cracked plaster around it.
This was painted on.
The wall here was damaged by the builders when they actually must have torn off the handrail and the, whatever these are called, the pieces of the stairs. Because it was definitely not We have more marks where there is no sealer. This is the same type of paneling that is used in the girls' room and downstairs in the hallway, and it takes well to paint if it's primed. We had never had a problem. This part I had primed and painted myself years ago and doesn't have a problem. This is the part that Rebuildex did and did not prime. We have 2 broken treads that we asked to be replaced. They did replace the 2 bottom ones, which was great, but the top 2 need to be replaced because they only had small cracks in them, and from everybody running up and down them with equipment, they have cracked badly. This has not been sanded, filled in. If you feel it, it's dirty because the whole site's dirty. And they did not prime any of this or fill in any holes.
Oh, sorry. There's a mark on the handrail here.
And there are a couple of marks on the brand new handrail, and it says in our orders with them that we've signed that this was to be painted.
We have a specific email asking for it.
This was not sanded, painted over nails, cracks in the plaster, damage to the plaster here, sloppy paint, painted outlet. I also have a whole bunch of notes here because there's a bunch of stuff going on outside. There's a white cap on the exterior of the house that goes to nowhere. It's just a white cap on my house. There's no dry event cut. The exterior kitchen stairs are now 9.25 inches tall, which is way out of code. And there are cracks in the foundation that haven't been fixed. We have overhanging trim on the back of the house. The roof line by our bathroom is not straight. We noticed that there's a burnt shingle that's left a hole right near trim that they put up on one of the eaves by the girls' room. The raw wood is showing through the exterior paint. The front door lock has been broken and a hasp screwed on, and we need that fixed. The door was really hard to open. We had to kick it open because it was stuck. The outdoor spotlight was not rewired on the side of the house, and the outdoor porch light wasn't rewired, but there is paint in this electrical box.
And marker coming
We have sloppy paint, obviously no primer. And this is the front entryway. When they painted the stairs, they didn't clean up, and paint doesn't stick to dirt. So this is paint peeling off, nails. If you look under here, the board was cut incorrectly. There's some damage to the fins. And there's a big hole right in the corner there. And we live on a cranberry bog and a lake. So sometimes we have a mouse problem.
I'm surprised we haven't seen one yet.
Yeah, over here. Yeah. The walls weren't sanded. Holes weren't filled in. There's plaster issues. Which brings us to the living room. Sorry about that, I forgot my level.
Doing a little jog.
So, the trim's damaged here, and this is fresh trim that they put up. So they're putting up damaged boards. They did damage to the paneling. We had said that we'd rather them not put the paneling back up, but they put it up anyways, even though they had put up new wallboard. They painted over nails, but when they took the wallboard down, they actually pulled it off of the wall, which caused tons of damage to it. And then they tried to fill it in with paint, not plaster. We have pictures of it in various stages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a ginormous gap here. I don't know if these are warped or not put up right, or they didn't do the wallboard right. But it's a ginormous gap. I can get my hand in it. Originally, I had a light switch here and an outlet here. This is, and we had actually sent an email to Corey telling him that this is where our electronics go. So we have no outlet now for our electronics, and because of the size of our house, this is the only wall we can put electronics on.
And now we're gonna have heat in back of our TV.
Yes, and heat in back of the TV is not really a good idea. So I have no light switch in this room, which is a little dangerous. No outlet for the television, which means I'm going to have a cord running over a doorway one way or the other. How long is this wall?
Do you want help?
It's just over 5 feet.
Oh, so are you.
So 5 feet. So it is over 6 feet to an outlet, but I don't know if by law they have to put one in if the wall is less than 6 feet. But it kind of makes sense because they had opened up this wall, which you can tell because of the wallboard in back of it. Also note the interior heat, the damaged fins. They did not put it back where it belonged, and I have open holes in my floor, which is why I think we're getting a lot of bugs in. There's painting outlet. There's an empty box because they put the outlets in the wrong place. When they put up the paneling again, that's incorrect. Paint in that outlet, an empty box. There's a big crack in the paneling here and here from where they pulled it off the wall. And the trim that they put up again after taking it down has big gaps behind it. These shelves are actually upside down.
Do you want to use the level?
I'm sure they're fine as far as level goes. It's just, oh, no, yeah, they're okay. They're fine. It's just that they are upside down, which is why you're getting gaps there.
Oh, geez.
This was not the right board to use here.
Which is all it is.
And it's, it's a little bit out of level there, which is not good because it is the wrong board to be there. They hung nails and screws for their work lights and just left them. I do want to bring up the damaged paneling. This is not from us hanging pictures because we had a TV here and the table here. The pictures were where they put new wallboard. Damage to the boards. Here's a nice one, a big chunk right here. Nice fresh wood. Damage to the paneling over here, same thing. We had a bookcase here, pictures had to go up top. This is reused trim, giant gaps. This might be hard to actually get on film, but I can put my fist basically inside of here and it's leaning forward.
Mm-hmm. I can
And
kind of see
this
it. Oh, no,
doesn't
you
match
can
up
see
at
it.
all. And there's a big gap here, so I don't know if they're using warped wood.
Mm.
And up here, the
Careful,
walls
don't fall.
have not been properly plastered or sanded. They're very, very rough. There's cracks in the plaster. This is their workmanship, by the way, because this is all new. There is paint and plaster all over here and a big hole by the left living room window. There's paint on the stovepipe as well. The floors have been completely destroyed, really destroyed. Gouges all over here, and there was a piece of furniture here. There was nothing here. You can see what's left of the finish because there was no way to get to this area. This is all on rebuildings.
And the spray paint.
And why did they spray paint the floors? Coming into the dining room, the trim was put up incorrectly.
What's new?
There's paint in the outlets. They did not take down hardware when they painted. More painted outlets. This board we think was put on either upside down or something else is going on. The huge gaps everywhere on this board. The paint was put on over dirty walls. It's very, very rough. Large gap on this side, which is why I believe that it was put on backwards. There is also the gaps right here where they cut the wallboard wrong. Painted electrical, damage to the drywall they put up. They didn't match up the paneling. And there's a lot of dirt in this paint. Here's more damage to the wallboard. I know it all sounds nitpicky, but we're trying to explain about how poor the overall workmanship and management of this job has gone. All of the fins here are missing and damaged. And if you look underneath, that's water damage caused over the winter by the wet insulation for when the firemen pulled the ceiling down in here. And the boards have rotted, and yet they must have known this because they put the heat and then painted. There's a ton of dirt in this paint here. This was never plastered. Hammer marks, I'm assuming they're hammer marks. Painted over where they hung up their work lights. More screws. Big chunk of plaster that was painted over. Another hammer mark. Big hole in the wall in back here. And this is where things get kind of funky. First of all, the trim's not attached to the wall on the base. But this is where things get a little funky. This is our Funhouse store. Crazy, right? So, this doesn't match up because the boards are probably either upside down or on the wrong wall because they reused the boards. But they shouldn't have. You can see the soot, the smoke, the scorch. It should never have been reused. And there's a nice big gap right here from when they pulled them down, they broke part of the doorway. Once again, big screw from where they hung their lights. Big hole in the wall by the dining room window that overlooks the kitchen door. Nice big hole in the wall of the doorway. And this is wallboard that they cut. So there's that and this. And you can see the soot here. Hi. All of this is sooty and gross. So there's that problem. And the big crack here too, because see the screw holes? They had hung work lights here too. We're going to go into the kitchen, but I want to point this out. They changed the elevation of my kitchen floor. Did not tell me they were even pulling up the kitchen floor all the way down to the crawl space. The reason that they probably changed the elevation, I've been told by another builder, was because they used a different size floor joist that was cheaper. And I kind of get that, but this is dangerous. We have somebody who's on disability in the house. They have mobility issues. I also have some mobility issues too. So that's caused some problems.
I mean, I'm fine, and I tripped over a ton of stuff in here.
This is the new door. As you can see, it leaks. And it doesn't just leak there, it leaked over here, but not as badly. Once again, we're going into funhouse time. This is different trim. It's a lot more narrow, but it's pretty awful. We have no gap up here, but as you go farther down the wall, the gap gets bigger in the trim around the door. Paint in the outlets. The paint around the window, it might be hard to see in this light because of the pink and the white, but it's all over the place. And we have paint and outlets. There is no trim here, they just stopped, and they do have boards in the house that they could have ran the entire board. We have baseboard heat running along this exterior wall and part of that exterior wall. They are not going to put back baseboard heat, even though that is what I asked for. There's paint in this outlet. The trim board that they put up here, there's a gap over here, and then it gets smaller as you come across.
Where's the gap? In the floor?
Yeah, see it?
Oh.
I understand a little gap because they haven't put down the flooring, but the gap itself is uneven, which means either the floor is uneven or the trim's warped. The outlet is painted. Outlet is painted.
And sticking out.
And sticking quite far out from the wall. This is, I guess, going to be our heater, but it's going to be inaccessible. Because there is a cabinet there with a toe kick. So, and it's not what we wanted. It is not what we asked for and not what Sedgwick, the insurance adjusters that came out, said should be done. And we will next get a copy of Sedgwick's report. These are painted electricals.
Oh, this one's especially bad.
Oh, I forgot I always forget the ceilings. That one is plastered and painted. There's paint in that one too. This electrical box is full of paint, and it was supposed to be over there. With the change of elevations, it's very unsafe for us to walk across a dark floor to actually flip a light switch.
And we're supposed to have a cabinet there too.
And yes, I keep on forgetting that. Our cabinet order, I believe our cabinet's going to come to about here. Oh, and the past is a mess. All right, this is supposedly new trim, and there's big digs in it. This is supposed to be our bathroom. Painted electrical outlet. Damage to heat fins. We have a hole that we don't know what it's for. And we're concerned about the vanity and tub having enough room in between them. This outlet is deeply recessed, and I don't know if that's okay or not. The ceiling fixture, the exhaust, is full of paint. You can see the building materials that they left behind.
Which we have not touched.
No, we don't touch anything in the house, honey. We just take pictures and leave notes.
Oh, they stuffed some outlets and stuff, but not others. And we can't figure out why.
But they still painted the wires. I don't know why the wires hanging out of the stuffed outlet. Okay.
The big stuff on this.
Well, that we don't touch this because they left this. So here's the other issue. This wall is not. Am I even? It's not 36 inches.
Just barely 30.
And the building code, MRC, I think 200.20. I might be wrong
Something
with the
close
building.
to that.
I will include that in my writing. But the building code says that this has to be 36 inches if it's been opened up. This is not the original wall. This wall was slightly farther back.
We have pictures of the whole place being open.
Yes, Rebuildex built this wall, and I complained about the width of it, and Corey said that he would grandfather it in, but if it's been removed, it cannot be grandfathered. This drywall has been replaced, so that would also make it not eligible for grandfathering, and it is much, much too narrow with somebody with any sort of mobility issues. Paint and outlet, damage to new trim. As you can see, we waddle over the boards. We make sure we do not touch anything that is not ours. Paint and outlet. There is spray foam on the door. There's plaster all over the door. This is actually a boot print, and we have a picture of it much more clearly.
On the glass?
On the glass. We actually have a very clear picture of it. I think the twins might have been rubbing at it. They've been kicking our door shut. No knob ever installed, which is probably another reason why we're having bugs in the house. We had damaged fins to the trim, to the heaters, chunks of plaster in the outlet here. I'm going to put you to the other side and save the absolute worst.